It is the Anfield Wrap and it's transfer deadline day. We've got Jamie Webster, Ian Ryan and Fuad Hasan. It's a bit different to normal. We've got a couple of inserts for you on a Monday. So we're going to be hearing from Pipe Sierra about Luis Diaz and Jack Collins, about Fabio Carvalho. There's a lot going on, more going on than I think we expected, Ian Ryan. Liverpool get the checkbook out on Luis Diaz, stealing the march on Spurs. We'll come on to talk about Carvalho, but first and foremost, it seems simultaneously, obviously it's a big fee, but at the same time it seems quite reasonably priced by the standards of football today, given everything he's achieved in the last few months.
Feels like a belt to nail. I think in terms of transfers, and everyone's got their own personal opinion on this, but when they come out the blue like that, they're just great. I mean, we've experienced it when we were coming back from Kiev, and my God, we needed the Fabinho one to come out when it did. And this feels like another shot in the arm, really, for us as fans, the players. The language the manager used, I would suggest he needed a little shot in the arm as well. Maybe he goes into work on another spring in a step this morning. So it feels like a really, really good one to get over the line. And I think, you know, at times I've maybe been a little bit critical of Liverpool, where they've not maybe flexed and used the financial kind of power that they've got. You know, I always say things like, you know, you've got to make the most of this manager. But if you're going to criticise, you've also got to give them credit where it's due. And they've acted like a big club. They've gone in, they've seen the fact that Spurs are sniffing round. They know there's a chance that player could move in the January window. And they've gone and got it done. And that's a massive tick in the box.
He wants it. Jamie is the other thing. The player, everything that comes out is that the player is desperate to play for Liverpool. He's played Liverpool on a few occasions. You know, it's not just this season. But he's had this experience, I think, of Anfield, and just the way in which he appears to have gone. If anyone else is in for me, I don't care. I'm going to Liverpool.
Well, it's not surprising the items we've given support over the last 3 years, really, is it? You know what I mean? But yeah, it's always refreshing, and it's always, you know, even nicer when you sign a player for big money that, you know, he really does seem like he's really keen, and like Liverpool were his target rather than, you know, him being our target sort of thing. You know, it's nice when it works both ways. So, I mean, I don't know too much about him, to be honest. You know, obviously when we played Porto weren't great, so my eyes weren't necessarily on him a lot. But I spoke to a 10-year-old fan at one of my gigs last night in Chester, and he's assured me that he's absolutely brilliant.
And he'll have done the hard yards.
He told me about this Carvalho fella as well. He reckons he's great as well. And 10-year-old lads who are footy mad are literally the best people to speak to about footy, because they watch it 24/7, don't they? They know all the players in the Spanish league and everything. So I'm just buzzing. It's just nice, isn't it? Because we've been not worried, I don't think, because we've got such a great, you know, attacking sort of line. Jota got added, you know, obviously last season, but it was almost like, you know, why aren't we going for these big fish? Do you know what I mean? It's like you do have that little. I mean, you'd always put your trust in the manager, but you do have a worry, like, you know, why aren't we spending this money? You know, where are we going to be in a couple of years' time when Salah's 30, Mane's 30, and Klopp's sort of coming towards the end of his tenure? Where are these young players that are going to, you know, step up into those shoes? And it's nice. I'm not saying that this lad will, because they're very big shoes to fill, by the way. But, you know, it's nice to know that we're told that we've got someone with the potential to do that. And it's always nice, like you said, Ian. It's just refreshing to see someone come in. We need it at this moment in time. We really do need it, especially with, you know, the African Cup of Nations still going on. You know, we'd probably
still there.
Yeah, we'd have liked to have had Salah back by now, probably, but he's not. So, you know, is there going to be a period of time where Salah needs to get back to his, you know, back to this climate, back to himself, before he can really start firing again? So I think it's a no-brainer to bring someone in, especially along that forward line.
It's how he fits, Fuad. Everything that you're saying, all the videos that you watch, what people say about him, 10-year-olds and up, stats, numbers, etc., ball carrying, speed and finishing. And that's very Liverpool's sweet spot for the front three. There's no messing around here. He carries the ball really, really well. He's very, very quick. And this season he's shown he knows exactly where the back of the net is. And if you were to describe Salah, to describe Mane, you know, even at the acknowledging, as Jamie says, the massive shoes to fill, what is it that Liverpool want from a front three player? Ball carrying, speed, finishing.
Exactly, and there's all sorts of different goals in there. I've only watched the YouTube compilations, and you're seeing all different types. And he's tall as well. He's not a short kind of winger. He's good in the air. He's got all the little bits that, you know, we love seeing in our forward players. And the really exciting thing for me is that he's in that exact same profile in terms of age, in terms of his numbers now, and the price that he's come in as Mane, Salah, even Firmino maybe, and Jota were, where they're just about to explode, and you want them to kind of kick on and explode at Liverpool. You don't want to be going after them later on. And, you know, we talk about Liverpool acting like a big club. They acted like a big club, not in terms of paying, over the odds and everything like that. It was the pull of the manager. It was the pull of Liverpool. It was the pull of, Klopp and Julian Ward, I'm sure. So that's all really encouraging signs that players, can literally be on the verge of signing a deal with another club, but Liverpool can just come on there and blow them away immediately and sell them on this idea. And like the manager said, he's one for the future, but he's also one for now, because he is at that age where he can come in and make an instant impact. And that's exactly what we need. And that's exactly, what the manager will want going forward in the next couple of years.
It's going to be a step up for him, Jamie. Let's be clear. He's been doing absolutely brilliant in the Portuguese league. But the thing on the step up, when Jota comes from Wolves to Liverpool, that's a step up. Salah going from Roma to Liverpool, it's a step up. I don't think you're going to get many now where it's not a step up in terms of the expectation.
No, definitely not. And I think what Liverpool have got a reputation for is making players.
Yeah.
Do you know, like you look at Suarez, Torres, they're arguing, like Suarez had a great spell at Barcelona, but he's playing, he was a smaller man to Lionel Messi in that team. Suarez is, what made the world stop and look at Suarez was his form at Liverpool. The same with Fernando Torres. We've done it with Mo Salah. We've done it with Sadio Mane. And Jurgen Klopp as well needs a lot of credit for what he's done with Salah and Mane, because they were half the players that they were when they come to us to what they are now. And I think Luis Diaz he'll recognise that. He'll recognise that, he'll look at the past and he'll look at the developments in players since they've come to Liverpool. And, he'll probably be saying to himself, if I want to consider myself as one of the best forwards in world football in 2-3 years' time, this is the move I have to make.
Yeah.
I need to work with Klopp and Linders. I need to play with Mo Salah. I need to play with players like Mo Salah and Sadio Mane to learn from them. It's a no-brainer for him as a player. It really is. It's just... And the quicker he gets his boots on, gets a couple of goals under them, it's only going to help.
The quicker he gets his boots on, I think, Ian, firstly, there's the rest of this season. Liverpool haven't bought him just for this season. Liverpool have bought him for all the way through. The other interesting part is we talk about the fee and we talk about Liverpool, shelling out. But this is a lad who's going better than 1 and 2 in his league so far this season. He scored goals in Europe as well. He scored joint top scorer in the Copa America. The wages also seems like a bit of a Liverpool sweet spot too, just less than 100 grand a week it looks like it is, with the promise of, you do the business for us, there's more to come. That's another thing that Liverpool have said to all of these players, and they've shown that as well with contract increases for footballers. Everything about it just, for me, the only thing that makes me suspicious about it is it all seems too Liverpool. It all seems too perfect, if you know what I mean. I've not really got a scintilla of doubt about any part of it, and that's the only thing that gives me any doubt, if you sort of know what I mean. The rest of it just seems like it's been perfectly scripted for us.
Yeah, it does feel like the stars aligned on this one. I think, we've got to be sensible about it, and there's a chance that he might need a little bit of time to adjust and settle in, because Liverpool, this manager, they ask a lot of certain footballers, all of the footballers to be fair, so there might be that adjustment period. We have to get on board with that. But what Jay was saying there, in terms of him, it's good to see him back himself, because quite often there's narrative, well, why will he come here? Because he won't get a game. Well, he's backing himself because he believes he'll get a game, and he'll put a bit of pressure on the likes of Sadio Mane, which is no bad thing. So it's aligned really, really well, Neil. And just back to the Liverpool kind of flexing the power again, you can look back at it now, slightly different. But even back then, Ferguson's United, you begrudgingly admire what they do. They go out and act like a big club, and they go and take Tottenham's best player. They go and take Arsenal's best player, Van Persie. They go and sign the best young players in Rooney and Rio Ferdinand. So that's
what obscene money by the standards of the time.
But that's what acting like a big club is sometimes. Yeah. You've got to go and flex. I'm sure you are a big club, and Liverpool have done that because there was a chance that he could have gone to Spurs. Spurs obviously got it quite far down the line, and Spurs having a bit of a torrid time, by the way, in the transfer market this window. But the manager, he does pay credit to kind of the owners and said, listen, we had to act quickly, we've done that. And clearly from his point of view, if there's a choice, well, there is no choice, because Liverpool are far ahead of Spurs in the development right now, and in terms of where he wants to be, he wants to continue playing in the Champions League. You talked about his record there. I think 1 and 2 this season. I think 1 and 3 overall for his time at Porto, 1 and 4 thereabouts for his national team. Quite a few people have commented on his performance the other night, but I think it's difficult when you're playing in a side that isn't quite at your level, and history is littered with national teams that haven't got the best out of individual players. So I wouldn't be reading too much into that at this stage. But no doubt Liverpool have got themselves one hell of a player who can carry the ball at pace. The fact that he's got pace as well is a huge tick in the box, because it scares the living daylights out of opponents. It just looks like a really, really good one, Neil. I think we're all on the same page here. Everyone seems to be delighted with it.
All right then. The other thing that's happening today in terms of the ins, Jamie, is this lad from Fulham. Again, he's not a player we can all act like we've seen him play all the time. I've seen bits of and pieces of him this season for Fulham. I think he's looked, just when I've caught them on the telly, I think he's looked really, really bright. The numbers would suggest he's been really, really bright. But again, for me, it's another one where you're getting to see Liverpool's long-term planning. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen today. It's still up in the air as we record this at 11 o'clock. But it looks like Liverpool are in there for him, and he's another exciting young prospect to add to this team.
Definitely. I think you've got to look at what we've done with Harvey Elliott as well. Do you know what I mean? I think we were all together, weren't we, on his first game in Napoli, in Murrayfield, weren't we, when Harvey first come, and you could see straight away when he was on the pitch that, he was the one. He was, out of all the young players that had featured in that pre-season, he was miles ahead of the rest of them. You know what I mean? And I think it's what's so great about Liverpool now. It's the scouting and everything that we're doing. We just seem to be doing it right. There just seems to be, I think we've probably looked at what we've done with Harvey Elliott and Fulham, and Harvey Elliott was at the start of the season in contention for the first team spots every week until his horrific injury. So I think we've probably looked at that and we've gone, what else have you got, really? Do you know what I mean? In obviously in a more calculated way, but and you've got to put trust in him. He's a young lad. I think they're looking to move now because they don't want another tribunal case, which is what they had with Harvey Elliott. They're just looking to move now, and leave him at Fulham till the end of the season. There's no harm in it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with him because, there's certain clubs that would rather a player of that profile go to a Borussia Dortmund, stay there for a couple of years, develop, and then go and pay huge money for them. But I think Liverpool have such a good structure and a system in place that they're more than happy to take these players on quite early on. Do you think they've also got with this one, Fuad, that's not in Fulham's interests because they don't get any tribunal fee at all if he goes to a Dortmund, or Porto were moving around for him as well. I'm really interested with this. I feel like Liverpool want to have a relationship with clubs like Fulham who've got a really good academy, clubs like Porto who bring through a lot of prospects. It was interesting. Klopp's statement after Diaz was like, Porto are great lads, Colombian FA are amazing. Let me, and it was like everyone's great here. I think there's an interesting thing with the Fulham thing where Liverpool, it seems to me like they want to get it sorted with Fulham. It's in Fulham's interest to get it sorted so it doesn't go all the way to the summer. It becomes a bidding war for them where Fulham would not benefit. And that to me is the massive part of this, is that I think this is why I think it will happen today, is that it comes together for everyone, especially if he gets to stay there. Definitely. And if from a Fulham point of view, you want to be showing other young potential players that there is a pathway to go on to the bigger clubs, and there's an easy process. And now they've got a bit of a track record. There's quite a few good youngsters that have come through there. So it'll be in their interest to settle it as well as quickly as possible. And the whole talk about mending relationships, I think part of this 5 million thing was a bit of a line under the Harvey Elliott mess when it did go to tribunal, and Fulham felt like they were maybe ripped off a little bit. So Liverpool are very interested in maintaining relationships with these sort of clubs because this could be someone where in 4 or 5 years time we're talking about a 50-60 million pound player for all we know. What he's done this season's exceptionally good. They're an intriguing side, Fulham. They've only got a 5-point gap at the top of the Championship, but they've outscored everyone by a mile. The goal difference is huge. It's twice as much as the nearest team to them. They'll expect to go up, but it's not guaranteed. I think this is why one of the most important things for Fulham is they don't want to lose this footballer. And Marco Silva's a manager who's got a bit of a mixed reputation because he got Evertoned, but he's shown himself able to develop footballers. I think look at his time at Hull, and I just sort of think it's actually, in a really strange way, it just ends up being in Liverpool's best interest that this lad goes and plays 15 to 20 more games in the Championship this season, where he's got the responsibility on him, because if you play for Liverpool, you play with responsibility.
100%. He's obviously operating at the top part of the Championship, and I think even from his point of view, obviously the player will want to move because it's Liverpool and they're knocking on the door and he'll know that, but at the same time he's done the first half of the season with Fulham, and I think he'll probably want to get them up as well, or be part of that process, because if he comes to us right now, there's a good chance you don't really see much of him anyway. I don't think Liverpool are signing this player at 19 years of age to come in and affect football matches right now. I think it's much more about the long term. So I think from his point of view and our point of view, it just makes loads of sense, Neil, to be honest. In terms of him as a footballer, really it's just to see kind of how he develops if he makes the next step up, because there's no doubt he looks like a talented boy. I think Fulham have used him. They have used him on the flanks, but obviously I think kind of historically he was seen as more of a number 10. Likes to be involved all the time. His goal return's pretty good. I think again it's not too far off 1 and 2 as an attacking midfielder, and he looks like he's got all the tools, to be honest. So highly thought of, makes loads of sense. As the lads have said, Fulham's academy, it's kind of it's brought lots of other players to kind of forward as well. You know, you talk about, I think Sessegnon brothers came through there as well as Harvey Elliott, and now this kid as well. So they've got a really, really good track record. So again, it just makes loads and loads of sense. And if Liverpool can get it done now and just keep him there, then massive tick in the box.
All of this, Jamie, you know, we spoke when the news broke around Michael Edwards going and Julian Wood taking his place. That's the last time you were on, and to me it's interesting, you know, just coincidental that you come on again. But we talked then about the fact that Liverpool will feel as though they had their progression sorted internally on that, and everyone's been at pains, I think, to make clear this has been Julian Ward who's been leading on this and not Michael Edwards. And, you know, for me, this is very much Liverpool hopefully reassuring supporters and the wide and confirming to the wider world they've got a plan for what comes next. Liverpool, I think that's what I'm taking from all of this. This has been quite clearly Liverpool going, we know what we're about here, we know what comes next.
Yeah, well, it's following the footsteps of what they've already done over the past few years. Do you know what I mean? We come, the owners come in, they started to build the team, we got the manager that we wanted, and slowly but surely we added the players that, yeah, granted they weren't players who were gonna, you know, ultimately change the dynamic of what we were doing in football matches straight away, but, you know, slowly but surely give them a season. Well, obviously Salah got off to an absolute flyer, but, you know, like, even as a footballer though, he's still getting better and better, do you know what I mean? And I think they're just looking at that now, and it's all about, like you say, if you're building a house, you've got to lay solid foundations, haven't you? Do you know what I mean? And I just think to progress, if we want to do a Man United and be, you know, like the Man United team that ruined my childhood, by the way, do you know, like, we want to be successful for 10, 15, 20 years in English football, we need to keep relaying these foundations and keep building them back up, because you can't do what we can't. Man United is another great lesson. If you look at Fergie's end, you know what I mean, he left them with the last team that could possibly win anything. You know what he knew? Well, I don't know that he knew, but
I think he knew.
It was apparent to most of us that Man United team didn't have another year left in them. You know, definitely not two. And I think that's what probably will be. You know, that will be the thing. You know, let's not do a Man United. And we've had the great success. We've had the successful period that all our fans have been dying for 30 odd years, do you know what I mean? And now give it, you know, minus the Istanbul sort of fluke in the middle, you know what I mean? But for 30 years we weren't as successful as we should be and as we were known for being. So now it's like, let's not, you know, the relationship between the club and the fans is really, really healthy now, and it's down to success, do you know what I mean? Because we as fans, we don't mind paying a little bit extra for your tickets if you're going to be challenging for league titles every year or whatever, do you know what I mean? You don't mind that, you know, you can understand if it's going somewhere, you'll accept the plan. So for us, you know, they want to keep us on side, they want to keep us where we are now, and the only way they can do that is by, you know, ensuring that this successful spell has legs to continue.
From a succession point of view, it does make all the sense, Neil, because I think you could have looked at it and thought, well, in the summer, Liverpool have got quite a bit to do. You know, if they are going to freshen up the front three, then that's one player they've got to bring in. I think there's definitely a case for looking at that midfield and saying it needs some freshness to it, needs new legs, because there's a lot of players in that midfield with question marks, I'd say. You know, if you talk about Keita, Chamberlain, you know, Thiago's had his injury problems, you know, Milner's likely to leave the club, Henderson's another year older, so I think there's a definitely case for saying work needs to be done in and around that midfield area and the front three. So they've just taken the weight off a little bit. They've made the moves now. It all makes perfect sense, and then they're not under huge pressure to then try and have to integrate 4 or 5 players in the summer period. So get these lads in now if you can, certainly in the case of Diaz, maybe not with Carvalho, but certainly in the case of Diaz, get him used to the system, get him understanding what the manager wants, what his teammates expect from him as well, and then you've got a bit more wriggle room in the summer to bring 1 or 2 in and not be under quite the same pressure. So, you know, from a succession point of view, again, it's ticking boxes for Liverpool.
Yeah, I think what we would have seen this summer is, and all the kind of signs were there that, you know, Liverpool were preparing to move for Diaz in the summer. It's just got brought forward because of everything that happened with Tottenham and things like that. And I was expecting some almost similar to that one when we get Alisson, don't we? We get Fabinho and we get a couple others where Liverpool just they have a clear plan and they just go big on these targeted individuals, and that is how you refresh the squad, because you don't want to be in a position where you are having to bring 5, 6, 7 all in one go, like you just said, Ian. You do want to have that slow process, and it just shows that there's not just long-term planning, there's also the short-term and medium-term planning at Liverpool, because Diaz fits both. He's not a project. He is already got a lot of things that Liverpool would want and can make an instant impact if everything goes well. But they are also thinking about the long term within the likes of Carvalho, and there's not many clubs in the country or the world that do have that level of detail and planning in terms of how the squad looks
or
now.
the capabilities to do both at once.
Exactly, the capabilities is the big thing. There's quite clearly an infrastructure almost set up in how Liverpool go about it. I think it might have been Paul Gorster's piece where he talks about how small Liverpool's scouting network actually is. But then that means that they do manage to really to get in personal with these players and get in early, and I think that's really important if you want to get these players before they become 50, 60, 70 million pound players, because at the end of the day Liverpool can't afford that every summer or every transfer window. They're going to have to go after these sort of players.
I also think when you bring it in a 60, 70 million pound player, you've seen it with Keita, it comes with a lot of added pressure for the player. You sign a young player for between 30, 40 million pound. I think even though it is an astronomical amount of money for normal working class people like us, but like Neil pointed out at the start of the show, in today's market, that's a bargain. That's a good price. So you get a player in, a young lad, 30 million quid now. I think you expect him to be a good player and you want him to do well, but you're not expecting him to score 5 in his first 5. Do you know what I mean? You're like, let's see how he beds in. He's got a bit of time. Do you know what I mean? As soon as them players come in for that 50, 60 million pound price tag, you'd expect it, and rightly so. As someone who contributes to that money by buying your tickets every week, you expect them to absolutely set the stadium on fire. Do you know what I mean? And just be that world class player that you've signed them as, and really make the difference straight away. So I think in getting players in that couple of years earlier, bedding them in, letting them know how we play, letting them learn from the players that are already in, it just gives them so much more confidence probably, and it gives us. It gives them so much more leeway as well. I just think you forget how young these lads actually are as well. Do you know what I mean? I think it's a human nature to this as well. You know what I mean? To bring a young 20-year-old lad in and go 60, 70 million pound player, all of a sudden he's gone from a young lad enjoying his football to someone who's just got massive pressure. Yeah,
João Felix at Atletico Madrid, actually a good example of that. All right, coming up right now, we've got Pipe Sierra, the wonderful Pipe Sierra, with John Gibbons, then talking about Diaz, then me with Jack Collins talking about Fabio Carvalho, and a little bit on Diaz because Jack watches a hell of a lot of football like a 10-year-old. So we will have those two back to back now, and then we will be back in the room with Jamie, with Ian, and with Fuad. Don't go anywhere.
And it is John Gibbons for the Anfield Wrap, and I'm joined by a very special guest. It's a club journalist who's been following the story for quite a while, has been talking about its developments and seemingly broke it overnight as well. 2:00 this morning, the first journalist to say this is all happening, it's all done. So we're so thrilled. Pipe Sierra, who's jumped on a Zoom call this morning, been up all night with this. Pipe, thank you so much for coming on.
No, my friend, thank you so much for this invitation. I'm really happy for you and for all the Liverpool fans. I think you will have, if the medicals is correct and all of those papers, nowadays the best Colombian player in the moment. Luis Diaz is an absolutely great player, and I know that he is very happy to join Liverpool.
I mean, it seemingly he is. Liverpool is the one he wanted. You've been talking about the story, as I say, for a while. Lots of clubs interested, and of course, will be interested in such a fantastic player. But it looks like Liverpool have got ahead and have agreed. With everything that needs to be agreed, but him wanting to go to Liverpool, I think, has been a driving thing.
Yeah, I think 2 months ago, Liverpool put his eyes in Luis Diaz because all of this operation that don't go in a good way with Everton in the last summer, and club in the Champions matches saw this characteristics of Luis Diaz, and he loved it. So the Liverpool start to work in this transfer, and as I know, big teams in Europe use the last week of the transfer window in this winter to make these big transfers. No, and in this way, Liverpool prepares, and obviously he is scared when Tottenham put an offer first of them, but I think God have a plan for Luis Diaz.
It's fantastic stuff. So, as I say, you've been close to the story for a while. You've been reporting on it and following it. Were you surprised how quickly things have changed and developed over the last few days?
No, I didn't surprise, because I know that in the last days something was going to happen, because I know a lot of teams ask for the conditions to Porto about Luis Diaz, and when Jorge Mendes, because this is important in this story, gives to Porto the offer of Fabio Paratici, the sport director of Tottenham, to Porto. All people surprises, because we don't have Tottenham in our radar, and this makes surprise for Liverpool directives, and then the staff works in a new offer. This is important too, because Luis Diaz don't want to not take into account his agent, because Jorge Mendes wants him without care the price. Yeah, and this is not good for soccer. But Luis Diaz respect put his zinc, or his verbal zinc, in this new team to be a Liverpool player. The agreement is for, I think, 4.5 years.
Okay.
And this is a long term with option of 1 year more plus.
Yeah, so it's a long-term commitment from both Liverpool and the player as well. A long-term commitment for both, and feels like Liverpool are potentially getting his best years as well. You know, he's a fantastic player now, but he's 25, so potentially his best years are to come, and in a Liverpool shirt.
Yeah, I see the team of Liverpool, and if you pay attention to this to the team of club, you can see that a lot of players have a long age now. Mohamed Salah and this. For that reason, club needs to make a change in the age of his new players, Diogo Jota, Roberto Firmino, in this case, Luis Diaz. So this is important for the Liverpool fans, because they be calm, because the club is working in pro of improve, and he's a good player. For me, he's the most important player, and every day he's working in to improve his level with different coaches. He's a absolutely great kid. He has a great story, because he is from a poor land here in Colombia, and in the land in was born Luis Diaz is a land that the kids, for example, died for hungry, and you can see, and Luis Diaz born here with these conditions, play for Barranquilla, from Barranquilla to Junior de Barranquilla, and then I think this is a great story to take into account. He's a great guy.
It's really interesting to hear that. You know, as you know, what he's the life he sort of lived to sort of where he got to now. You mentioned he's a good guy. You know, is he a humble guy? Is he pleased with sort of what he has and recognises, you know, what he has and what he can give to a football team?
Yeah, he's a good guy, and I think you have a not only a good player, he's a very very good person, and he loves his family, and he's a kid because 25 years is my age, for example, and I think is too quickly to start all of these things in football and in a great team, as we know, Liverpool. I can tell you that people here in Colombia are very happy because he don't sing for Tottenham. Here, I think we don't like Tottenham.
Okay.
Because, you know, Liverpool is one of the most important teams in the history, or the most important in history of England. So for that reason, I put red today.
I know I've got the wrong colour on with all sorts of slapping away and trying to sort of make things happen. So
almost
you mentioned
6 a.m. Almost 6 a.m. here, John. This is great. I didn't sleep today for all of this news.
Oh, no, I really appreciate your time. So you mentioned there how big Liverpool is in Colombia and you know, a huge name, but presumably now there'll be even more interest in what's going on at Anfield, people watching the games more, and hopefully, you know, as Liverpool have a really strong end to the season, lots of interest in how Luis Diaz does with that.
I absolutely sure that I'm going to see tomorrow at least one shirt with the name of Luis Diaz in the back.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just a little bit more on Luis as a player, if you don't mind. We've seen him a couple of times when we've played Porto in the Champions League, but obviously, you know, in those games you're caught up in wanting to win in your team. But he very much impressed, particularly at Anfield this season. So, what do you think his main qualities are as a player, and what do you think he can offer this Liverpool squad on the pitch?
I think the most important qualities of Luis Diaz is that he's quickly and smart in the pitch. So when you combine both of these qualities, you can get an absolutely great player, because he every moment is thinking about for his team, not for him, not for only score goals, and he's every time thinking in how he can play for the team. So, for example, the assistant of Luis Diaz every time that you see was great, and in the position that he applied in the moments that he need to define the goals was awesome, because his position in the box is every time great. So I think this is the most important qualities of Luis Diaz.
Yeah, we've certainly seen plenty of that from the highlights, the reels that we've showed. I think every Liverpool fan is watching his YouTube channels and and just seeing the variety and quality of goals he can score, and he seems to show real leadership on the pitch as well. Is something that I've noticed. Obviously, he's the main guy for Colombia now, as you mentioned. He's been the main guy for Porto for a while, and he feels to me like he's comfortable and happy with responsibility on the pitch.
Yeah, he's a leader without doubt. He every time that he you can see on the pitch, he play something different for the team. I think he's a good guy. I can give you a news, because I know that Luis Diaz, if receive a yellow card, it's probably that he will travel immediately today to Liverpool.
Okay.
But if he didn't receive, he going to travel with Colombia to Argentina, because this is the next match in Tuesday, and in Argentina he's going to do the medicals. So this is important.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So, I mentioned there that lots of people in Colombia are going to be watching Liverpool games, but there's an opportunity for people in Liverpool to watch a Colombia game today and see how he goes, see if that yellow card happens, but also see sort of how he plays, where we're going to get an opportunity to watch. It's just they're just friendly games, these, aren't they?
Rest 4 matches against Peru. That is a rival, directly rival in the qualifiers. Argentina, and then in 2 months we're going to play against Bolivia and Venezuela. So if Colombia wins 3 matches, I think we're going to pass to the World Cup.
Well, let's all hope so now.
But in the last matches, you can see the problem, and is Colombian don't score. So I think in the last 5 matches, Colombia can't score.
We'll see. But everyone will be watching. I think now it's early today to sort of see how it goes and see how. I think it's.
Let me see. You have 5 hours more, no?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
9 p.m. for you.
Oh, that's easy. It's easy.
Yeah. No problem.
Yeah, easy. Cool. So, is there anything that still sort of needs to happen? There's a medical, I know, that needs to happen, but is your understanding that this deal now is pretty much all done, and it's just a case of finalising a few things around paperwork and a medical and things like that? Or are there any other hurdles?
No, these rest little things about the papers and these things. But this morning, Luis Diaz wake up early to accept this proposal for Liverpool and accept the personal terms in the contract. And then I really know that he don't sleep today because of the emotion. Yeah, he's very, very, very happy to sing for Liverpool.
Yeah, so just to finish, just how excited should Liverpool fans be about this signing, about Lewis coming, and how, what do we have to look forward to as Liverpool supporters getting this great player?
I think it's awesome. For example, in my Twitter, I increased a lot of followers, and this is awesome. Yeah. But I'm very happy for the fans of Liverpool. Really, you have the best Colombian player in the moment. It's something like when Real Madrid sing James 8 years ago, something like this.
Wow.
You feel something like this. Yeah.
Well, it's hugely exciting for Liverpool supporters.
I think it's a big, a great challenge for Luis Diaz, because not a lot of players, Colombian players, do a great job in the Premier League. You can see that a lot of Colombian players do great stuff and that things in La Liga or in Serie A, but not in the Premier League. For that reason, I think he has a good challenge to do an absolutely great things in Liverpool.
Oh, we shall see. But thank you so much, Pipe, for coming on. He's P. Sierra R on Twitter. He's mentioned there lots of new Liverpool followers on Twitter. I'm sure there's going to be even more. So he's been really close to the story. It was the first I saw to break it overnight. So congratulations to
John,
Pipe for
thank you.
Obviously getting that scoop there.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the Anfield Wrap.
Joined by Jack Collins of Fulhamish to talk first and foremost about Fabio Carvalho, who it looks like is moving to Liverpool, but in the summer. So Liverpool, it looks as they're going to pay a certain fee, agree a fee with Fulham. And then in the summer, he will be becoming a Liverpool player then. First and foremost, Jack, and let's be clear here where your interests lie, that is very much what Fulham need, isn't it, given the fact that nothing is sorted out at the top of the Championship yet?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of not losing Fabio at this point, he's been such a creative force this season. And we saw in the games without him that Fulham did struggle to create without his impetus. And, that's quite a big statement to make given how young he is, how few senior games he's played. We're talking about him in these kind of terms already. Now, obviously, I would rather not lose him if the option was there. But at this point, we've seen obviously players leave for tribunal fees and all of the above before and, to Liverpool and elsewhere. So there's that kind of element of, can you get something done so that you don't lose another gem out of the academy for free or for a nominal fee? So there is that kind of element, but we definitely need him to remain at the club, and also probably good for him as a whole to remain for another 6 months, because it does feel like he's not going to be walking straight into this Liverpool first team. He probably won't be even next year if he joins. So it is that kind of getting those senior games under the belt, because we're still talking about a player who's maybe played sub 30 games of senior football.
It's strange, therefore, then, and it's telling that it feels like Marco Silva, if I say he's built the team around him, not quite that, but not far away from that for a player with that level of inexperience.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I think that just goes to show what kind of level of talent we're talking about here. And, there's an element of, obviously, Fulham have seen promising youngsters, good youngsters come through before. And the question that often gets thrown around is, would you rather have Fabio Carvalho or Ryan Sessegnon? And they're very different players. Obviously, Sess was a wonderful servant for the club in the Championship and did really well that year. But he was the kind of player that ghosted in and scored goals. He didn't make things himself. He just was a very, very knack of turning up at the right place at the right time. And so I think, you look at that and you think, compare it to Fabio, who can make things happen by himself. And I think that's what we've seen this year from Fulham, is a player come in of Fabio's quality and go, I can do this. I'm able to do so. And despite the fact he's relatively small in stature, we're still talking about a very tenacious player who's able to get in and get amongst it, as well as being incredibly technically able.
When you talk about how technically able he is, where do you see his long-term future? Liverpool play quite if I say a rigid 4-3-3, I'm not referring there to the nature of the way that shape operates. I'm referring there more to the fact that Liverpool quite rigidly play that shape.
Yeah.
Where do you think, Carvalho's done a lot of his work, sort of 4-2-3-1, middle of the three. Yeah. Where do you think his long-term future lies, certainly if he moves to Liverpool?
Well, I think this is the interesting thing, right? This is the debate you go to and you think, does he fit into this Liverpool system right now naturally? I think the answer is probably no. We're looking at this and thinking, where does he end up? Can he play off the left? Probably. Will he be playing off the left, especially with Luis Diaz now come in there? Probably not. So you're looking at this and thinking, maybe this is a long-term plan to shift the shape. And I suppose, obviously we saw Philippe Coutinho leave all those years ago. And since then, there's never really been a 10 come in to replace him, right? We've seen, obviously, a little bit of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain play there. We've seen a little bit of Naby Keita in that role as well. But we're thinking about this in a kind of more general sense. I'd be saying no one's ever come in to fill that void. And maybe with Liverpool looking to a kind of longer term future, and we're starting to see the renewal of this front three, as we say, Luis Diaz come in, Diogo Jota come in. I think as that shifts, perhaps there will be a shift in shape back to a 4-2-3-1. Or if you have a defensive midfielder as good as Fabinho is, perhaps you can just play Fabio as the kind of advanced 8 of a 3, because you have someone of Fabinho's quality to be able to shift in there.
Do you think that's more likely then than him being part of the front three? Do you think he might have a home over a flank over a period of time if he develops physically, or even through the middle, because at some point someone replaces Roberto Firmino for Liverpool? Or do you think it's more likely he takes a step backwards and plays as one of Liverpool's 2-8s?
I think maybe the beauty of this transfer and the beauty of the versatility that Fabio has is that right now, as we say, not huge amounts of senior football. He can probably be molded into whatever you want him to be. I think there is an element that obviously you watch Bobby Firmino and where he played before at Hoffenheim, and, that kind of 10 role that he often took up. You could argue that perhaps there is a long-term future through the middle, as Fabio is kind of a jumping off as a 9.5, if you will. So there's that perhaps something to look for. And look, I think what will happen is he'll come in and he'll start to be molded by wherever Jurgen Klopp and the staff want to put him. I think we're talking about a player who can almost certainly play left wing through the middle and in that 8 against certain opposition, maybe not against everyone. And that in itself is probably the reason that Liverpool are looking at getting this done so early, because there is that, kind of moldability of someone so young and so raw.
For Fulham, then, from now until the end of the campaign, obviously, they want to keep hold of him. Liverpool agree the fee and the ideal, and it does appear to be playing out this way. It seems sensible for all parties, as you said earlier on, that he goes and plays consistent football where not just he's getting a game, but he's integral to a club. I mean, that feels sensible. Fulham currently sit 5 points clear at the top of the Championship. It's a long league. You know it better than I do. There's still 18 games to go at this stage of the season. 5 clear with a game in hand on Blackburn, who are immediately beneath them. Do you think that for this player, Fulham going on and winning that league and being part of that success this season, again, thinking about his confidence and thinking about his own development, this is, he's not scrubbing around at the bottom of the Premier League. He's not having to fight for every single point. Instead, he's getting to play for the best team in that division.
Yeah, absolutely. And right, this is about how, a player, and we talk about Harvey Elliott, right, and how that kind of panned out. And obviously that season where he went on loan to Blackburn and they were a good side in the Championship is probably, despite the fact that it's a slightly, lower tier in terms of where they are, is that better for him and his minutes and his development in terms of that, rather than him going on loan to, a Norwich City or a Watford, where those minutes are going to be reduced because you're scrabbling around, as you say. So I think for him to be part of a winning side, to be part of a ball dominant side, to be part of a team that are looking to constantly attack, is probably something you're looking at as a Liverpool fan and thinking that makes sense, right? Because that's how you play. And we're seeing him in a system which probably doesn't mirror it in terms of formations, you say, but definitely mirrors it in terms of how much Fulham have the ball, how much Fulham are looking to attack at pace this season under Marco Silva as well. I think it's something that, in terms of his development, makes far more sense. The only question I would suppose it would be is, do you actually send him on loan for 18 months? And do you leave him at Fulham for another 18 months because he is so integral, as you say, to a Marco Silva side? Now, obviously, we can't say if Marco Silva will be in charge of Fulham in November next year, because the rigors of the Premier League are different and it's a different question, and where you have to play different systems. But is there a point to say, is there anywhere else where he's going to get as many minutes as he is currently under Fulham next season if you're going to continue that development? I suppose that's the big question in terms of what happens next. But I think for this 6 months, it's a no-brainer.
Okay, Jack, in case you don't know, he hosts for Live Score as well as doing Fulhamish. He also hosts the UEL Breakfast Show as well. That'll be coming back very, very soon. He's on Rank Squad. And for Rank Squad earlier in the season, he was absolutely singing the praises of Liverpool's new signing, Luis Diaz. I felt it was rather OTT. And trust me, if you've been paying attention to the Anfield Wrap for the last couple of days, you'll know that that's saying quite something. You think he could be absolutely scintillating for Liverpool, Jack. Why is that?
I just think that we're looking at a player here who is one of the best ball carriers in terms of dribbling that I've seen in a long, long time. And we're looking at this, and, obviously the Primera is not the same level of standard as the Premier League is, but we've seen Luis Diaz do this on a Champions League stage, on an international stage, at the Copa America, against teams like City in the Champions League. We're looking at a player who has the ability to absolutely rip through teams. Now, I don't think that he's going to be a player in Mohamed Salah's mold who consistently delivers every single time. But what I think you have is a game breaker in Luis Diaz, in someone who in a moment can switch things around. He's a bit frustrating. He does silly things sometimes. He carries the ball out of play. You have those moments, but he could trick his way out of a post box. And I think ultimately, when you have those kind of players, they're a joy to watch, they're a joy to behold. And when that's kind of the case, I think you bring one in and someone of his caliber, his standard, who's been able to do it at an international level, a Champions League level, and for Porto consistently this year for the first time, right? We're really seeing the Copa America last summer and then this year's league and Champions League campaign. The first time we've seen Sergio Conceição put real faith in Luis Diaz as a time and time again starter. And he's repaid him in kind by being the top scorer, by being his most creative weapon. And he kind of felt a bit, I think at one point, like the kid that didn't pass at five-a-side, who would be incredibly frustrating. And you'd get to a weekend, you get to an 11-a-side game, be like, come on, mate, you can't do it all yourself. This year he's done it all himself. And I think when you're, playing at that level and playing at that standard and continually to beat men, to improve your finishing, I think we have a kind of Vinicius Junior kind of level player here. That he's obviously a little bit older and he's kind of not quite as raw, but we saw Vinicius go from being an excellent but frustrating player to someone who has that end product. I think we've seen similar from Luis Diaz, and I think he will carry that into the Premier League.
Excellent stuff from Jack. Thinks Luis Diaz is a joy to behold. He is himself. Check him out on the Europa League breakfast show that he does there. Everything he does for Live Score, Ranked Squads. And if you're really that way inclined, you can listen to him talk about Fulham, who are absolutely tearing the Championship up, even if the points total doesn't suggest that. The goal difference does this season. They are the most exciting team in that division. Fabio Carvalho plays for them. Jack Collins talks about them all. That can't be an accident. Welcome back. Download the app, subscribe to the Anfield Wrap. We had a fantastic run of brilliant stuff. The reason why I wanted to play the Pipe Sierra thing, the highlights of the Pipe Sierra thing there, is because it was fantastic for him to do all that work with us on Friday, tell us about this footballer. Loads of brilliant stuff on Friday on the Anfield Wrap as it went through, and there'll be loads of great stuff today. And then loads of fantastic stuff for the rest of the season as well. This is a time where Liverpool, I keep saying it, can win 4 trophies. Will they win 4 trophies? Almost certainly not, but they can win 4 trophies as we sit here. They could win 3 trophies, 2 trophies, 1 trophy, or no trophies, but they will definitely play in at least 1 final, and I think they'll play in more than that. It's a football club that's determined at the moment, so download the app and enjoy everything that we've got on there. Other things as well that are going on at the minute. You're going to go to number 1?
If everybody supports it, I'm sort of... Obviously, my new album Moments is out.
Moments, yep.
Yeah, it come out on Friday, and the reception's been mind-blowing as always. You know, I can't thank the fans enough for obviously supporting me from the ground up to this point, and every time I put something out, they really make me feel like I'm doing my job properly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But in terms of chart positions in number 1, it's not all about that, but it would be life-changing.
It'd be great, wouldn't it? I mean, no,
life-changing to get a number 1, and it really would. And not that I've got a bad life at the minute, you know what I mean? I really enjoy what I do, but, you know, I'm in a race with 2... I can't really disclose any numbers too early, but I'm basically in a 3-horse race, which is a lot like Liverpool in it. I'm in a 3-horse race for a number 1 position. To finish anywhere in the top 3 would be on an independent label. It's,
you're on Modern Sky, aren't you? It's incredible for Modern Sky as well, this.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. You know, we don't have rock star dads. Well, I don't have a rock star dad. My dad was an electrician. We don't have rock star dads. I don't have a record label who can throw $100,000 at an album campaign in the blink of an eye. You know, it's all got to be done through fan power and play to our strengths. So please, if you really want, if you like seeing me having a smiling face, then please just get your nans, your granddads, your aunties, your uncles, your mums, your dads, and your dogs.
You're doing it this way, and it's good that you're doing it this way. But the other thing to point out, I listened to it yesterday. It's a good album. You know what I mean? You must be delighted with it. It's not just this idea that people aren't doing you a favour. They'll be buying a good album.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I genuinely, when recording the album, and like when we finished it in Rockfield and I got the mixes back, I had a moment where I was sat there in my living room listening to it, and I was almost tearing up because I was like, I cannot believe that the sound of this album is under my name. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just couldn't believe it. So yeah, it means an awful lot that people connect with the album first and foremost.
And people have been. I mean, I've been seeing people who are, you know, friends of mine online have been talking about it and talking it up. You know, I think Something in the Air's a belter. I think there's a couple of other really good songs on there. I like also, and this will sound a bit weird, but this is the way I am, I like that you turn it around fast. Good song. We're not messing about 35 minutes in and out.
No, but that's it. Like, I just don't see the point of album fillers. I just don't know why anyone decided that was a good idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, why not just give them what they want? Do you know what I mean? Like, people want songs that make them happy, that make them want to move. They don't want to listen to something and go, like, if you've got a skipper on your album, what's the point of having it on? You know what I mean? Because I just think there's loads. I could have done a 25-song album. You know what I mean? But 15 of the songs would have been bad. Do you know what I mean? So why do it? You know what I mean? I see it a lot nowadays, and I think people do it to be like, oh, look at my double album and that. You know what I mean? But half of it's a load of rubbish. It's just scribbles that you've done and turned into a tune just for that word content. But for me, I am who I am. You know what I mean? I just like to give it to people straight up. And thank you very much, Neil.
No problem at all. Moments, it's on Modern Sky. Buy it, listen to it, then buy it. If you listen to it, you'll buy it. That's my guess on this one. It will be great to see Jamie at number 1 come the end of the week. But as was said there earlier on, top 3, I mean, top 3 is absolutely incredible. It really would be absolutely incredible. And it's great to see something that is there because it's got people from the ground up getting excited about it, not because, as he says, someone's put $100,000, $200,000 in on a marketing campaign around it as well. All right, then we'll talk about the outs. Ian, Nat Phillips has got to get his move. I mean, I'd almost be a bit, because at the minute I want to see Liverpool find time to get Joe Gomez on the pitch. I really hope he starts against Cardiff. Nat Phillips, therefore, it becomes so difficult to see where he next gets a meaningful game of football for Liverpool. I'd just quite like him to go and play somewhere. He deserves to be playing somewhere, especially whilst people remember his contribution to Liverpool at the end of last season.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it feels like it's now's the time for Nat, and obviously he's had a little bit of time out, hasn't he, with an injury as well, but I think he's back now, so you'd hope he'd get his move. I think on the back of what he did for us, and this is not me saying he was ever going to be good enough long term, I think most people would agree with that, but he didn't half step up when we needed him most, and I think on the back of that, one or two clubs have started to show interest, and if he does get his move, and it looks like it will be a Premier League move, and I think there was a lot of talk at one point, is he quite ready for the Premier League? Could he play week in, week out? I'm still not sure, if I'm being honest. I think he's the kind of player who, if he got a really long run, you'd start to see more mistakes. I don't think he's quite at the level, the top end of the Premier League in terms of the top 10, but maybe towards the bottom end he'll do someone a job, or maybe top end of the Championship. We'll have to see how he gets on, but I just hope he gets it, because he's at that point now where his next contract is probably going to be a huge one for him, and on the back of what he's done, I think there's clubs out there willing to kind of pay him what he thinks he deserves, so fingers crossed nearly gets over the line with something.
A genuine cult hero for me, Jamie, in that there's some players who were just really good players, and someone else, like Divock Origi for instance, someone will say cult hero for Liverpool because of what he's done. Well, no, he was just great. The thing with Phillips was, when you needed him, he was there. Yeah. He was reliable. He's not a footballer you'd necessarily want to have playing at our level week in, week out, but he could not have done any more for this football club.
No, I refer to Nat as King Nat. That's what I call him. Like, I just love him. I love his, what strikes me about players like Origi and Phillips, it's like you're given an opportunity and you take it. Do you know what I mean? And like what we needed at that moment in time from Nat Phillips was not someone to bring the ball down on his chest, carry it 5 yards and spray a ball out to one of the fullbacks. We didn't need that. We needed somebody who could defend, put the ball into Rose's head, put their head on the ball, which Joe Gomez I don't think can do. I don't think he's great in the air as a defender. I think he's decent on the ball and he's fast, but as an actual defender, as his actual job at defending, I don't think he's good enough. Personally, I think Nat Phillips as an actual standing up defender, man against man, is better, but obviously with the ball at his feet, pace and stuff like that, it comes into play a lot in professional football these days. I think you got to look, he played 17 games last season, Nat Phillips, 17 games he played, and we finished third. So I think, I'm not trying to start an argument, but I think to say that he can't do it in the Premier League, I think that is proof that he can. I think the more that...
He's got to get a Premier League move.
I think the more that he plays in the Premier League, I think we've seen it with us, the more that he got into his sort of, into himself and played week after week after week, he got better and better, and the mistakes were few and far between towards the end of it, really were. I think he was putting some really, really sterling performances in towards the end of that season. I'd love to see, I genuinely, just because I love him so much as a person, I would love to see him be good enough to play for Liverpool one day, but, obviously, I'm not, I don't really think that it's going to happen for him. I think it is his time now. I'd love to see him get a boss move to a decent club and get a decent money contract, and just
Liverpool ask a lot of centre halves, and I think what you said there, Jay, obviously we had to adjust our style of play to kind of basically incorporate Nat Phillips, and I think he didn't let anyone down. It's fair to say that, and don't forget he's playing with great players in training, so that's going to improve you anyway. There's no doubt about it. I think on the Joe Gomez point, one thing, and we spoke about this on the Friday night, I'd have been really upset if Liverpool had let Gomez go in this window, because I think there are still questions to answer on Gomez, whether he can get back to the level he was at maybe 18 months, 2 years ago. I don't know that. The manager will know. He'll have an idea. But I think if you get Joe Gomez anywhere near the level he can play at, I think he's still one hell of a centre half. But there are questions to answer. He can do the stuff that Jay alluded to there in terms of the on-the-ball stuff. And I think he complemented Van Dijk incredibly well when he was at his very, very best. Now, I don't know whether he can get back to that level. And there may be something in the summer, because he's definitely fallen below the likes of Matip, the likes of Kanate. And is he going to be happy being fourth choice?
Well, he's got to play.
Exactly. And you want to see him at Cardiff, but I don't think he's going to be happy being fourth choice. There's a World Cup on the horizon as well. He'll want to be involved in that. And I don't know, being third and fourth choice for Liverpool is going to get him to that point. So he's got a decision to make in the summer. So have Liverpool. But take nothing away, if you can get Joe Gomez back to where he was when he was partnering Van Dijk, then he is still one hell of a footballer for me.
Next one on the line is Nico Williams, been linked with a loan move away. Fuad, there'll be some who'll be surprised by that. You know, he is still Liverpool's main backup to Trent Alexander-Arnold. In the same way, we've seen this in the past with a lot of managers, I think. They get to this stage of a season and there's only it becomes, we're running for the line now. I've got all my lads in. I'm not surprised that they might look to get Nico Williams regular games, because it is, you know, in almost every league game and in every Champions League game, and possibly even against Cardiff because of rhythm, I expect Trent Alexander-Arnold to play for Liverpool. Now, he could get an injury, don't get me wrong, and then people will go, oh God, what do we do that for? But I do think there's a thing here where Nico Williams deserves to be playing football. He looks great whenever I see him this season. No,
I agree completely. And he hasn't had a run of games. You know, he hasn't had a loan spell before where he's managed to go play at, you know, either top-end Championship team or Premier League team, which is where he should be looking at the stage he's at now. And I think as a player, no matter what age, no matter how good, or whether you can just come in, you do need that spell. You do need to be having that consistency to see that, you know, you can do it, and a bit of confidence. I feel like that's always been a little bit of a thing with Nico. Obviously, there's been problems before with, you know, abuse he's been getting online and stuff like that, and you sort of see that how that affects a young player and how he sort of fits in the shirt on the pitch and willing to try things. And I think recently we've seen a little bit more of that. We've seen him, you know, beat a man, get a cross in. We see him play in the front three a little bit, which is a little bit mad, but you know, we went with it. But yeah, I think if you're a top end Premier League club, top end Championship club, there's no reason why you shouldn't be going. And I think Liverpool will be more than happy because, you know, there is Conor Bradley there as well, who has stepped up himself. You know, not saying that you'd want him to be there as your next one in, but then Joe Gomez also can play right back. So Milner. So there are options there. If that means Nico does go and get his football. And look, if Liverpool do want to move him on, Liverpool should get as much they can out of him because he is still a young player and he's still got a lot of potential.
For me, I think he needs to be moved on. I don't know, not against the lad personally. I think when he first come in against Arsenal in that League Cup game and he got like the assist for Origi in the last one, I think he showed a really, really good spirit and, like, you know, looked like maybe in this first couple of games he could be the natural succession to Trent, or not the succession, but, you know, a decent replacement. You know what I mean? But for me, Milner's the second choice right back any day of the week. I think in terms of like what you want from someone, like you only got to look at when Trent was injured for the Palace game, was it? And Milner just bossed Zaha. Do you know what I mean? Like, pace had nothing to do with it. It was Milner just schooled him in terms of his mentality.
I think this is an important point that Jamie makes, Ian, in that I think if Liverpool, so we want every game from now until the end of the season to be important. Cardiff, 4th round of the FA Cup, put it to one side. But then if they're in the 5th round of the FA Cup, certainly once you're in the 6th round of the FA Cup, the quarters, then we're talking about these league games where it feels like it's all on the line. Then we're talking about the Champions League, hopefully a run deep. This is where I think, and I understand why people will say, you know, letting Nico go when you haven't got a clear cover right back. I just genuinely don't think the manager would pick him. With the possible exception of a game against Cardiff or a 5th round of the FA Cup, I think he would go with someone who's got more miles on the clock in that position, and that's one of the reasons why he needs to go, at the very least, he needs to go and get the miles on the clock.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think other than potentially the Cardiff game, and I'd even argue I'd probably look maybe at playing Trent because Liverpool have had 2 weeks off, so they're going to have to get people back.
And then the next game's Thursday, it's not like it's Tuesday.
No, they're going to have to get people back in rhythm, so I don't think that Cardiff team will be as weak as one or two people have suggested it might be. I think there'll be lots of players in there who are kind of either first team or one of the first subs, so I think it'll be a strongish team. And then after that, I think Jamie's right. I don't think Liverpool look towards Nico if they've got a problem at right back. I think they'd shuffle the pack and do something else. I mean, I don't particularly like Gomez at full back, but I think they may look at that before they'd look at Nico Williams, for instance, depending on the game, of course. And then there is Milner as an option, but I think, you are seeing Milner now more and more as good as he's been for this club, and he's been fantastic, by the way. It is catching up with him a little bit where you're just seeing him maybe miss a few more games than he used to because he's picking up those little niggling injuries and stuff. But that said, I think if there's an opportunity for Nico, I don't think Klopp will stand in his way. I think he's a firm believer of looking after the footballer first as well, as his own interests. So I think if it does come his way on transfer deadline day, don't be surprised to see Liverpool let him go.
Last two then. Fuad, Taki Minamino and Divock Origi. I reckon at least one of these goes. If you've got 5 options in attack and touch all the relevant wood, 4 of them have been pretty physically robust during the time at Liverpool / Diaz at Porto. He hasn't had a notable injury for a period of time there. He's been turning up to games. Firmino's began to get the odd knock a little bit more. But it's really difficult to see how both of them can stay at Liverpool and be the 6th and 7th choice options. I just wouldn't think that was, again, this is back to, I wouldn't have thought that was necessarily good for them. I think one goes. Who do you think goes?
I think Minamino. I just think Origi, his contract's up in the summer, isn't it? So unless there's someone desperate that comes in with an offer, and it doesn't really seem like that's been happening, but you never know. Today anything can happen. I think it is Minamino, just because, you know, the manager spoke about it in the past, hasn't he? Where he's, you know, been forced to play Divock Origi because of the other reasons in terms of, you know, Minamino's physicality, the fact that we don't really know where to play him. I feel like that's still an issue. He hasn't really settled a full-on position. I'd love him to stay. I feel like he almost deserves that League Cup final and deserves hopefully a medal at the end of it because of what he's contributed throughout that. But, you know, I think if we're all honest, it hasn't worked out how they would have imagined. It was clearly a kind of a bit of a gamble, wasn't it, because of the cut price at the time when he was at Salzburg. So if any of those two were to go, I'd say him, because Divock does offer you something different.
I just think it comes to this. I think it comes to this question, right? 10 minutes left in the game. You look to your bench. Just Divock Origi and Minamino sat there. Yeah. Who'd you back to score the winning goal? Divock Origi every single time, and that it's just common sense. It's black or white for me. All this stuff. Do you know what I mean? I think Gomez. I think personally, I think we'd get more money for Gomez than we would for Nat Phillips, and Nat Phillips would probably be more happy to sit round and be a 4th choice centre half. Personally, if you're asking me, Gomez goes, Williams goes, and Minamino goes. If they have to go, then they're the 3 who go for me. I think you just got to look at it logically speaking. Gomez isn't. I think Gomez was playing in the shadow of Van Dijk a lot. I think he was found out a lot when Van Dijk did get that injury. I think in the 5-6 games after that, Matip looked like the better centre half out of the two. I think Gomez slipped up an awful lot. I don't like calling people out, but if you're asking me, you know, I do think that Gomez has far more to learn than any of the other 3, and I think we make more money off Gomez anyway. I don't think he's going to be the player that he once was, especially after the injuries that he's had now. I think once you lose that yard of pace, it's really, really, really hard to get it back. I just think personally, if you want to earn some money, you know what I mean? You want to be able to strengthen bigger and better come the summer. I think you let go of Minamino, who's got longer on his contract. You let go of Joe Gomez. More teams would be, you know, you get like a decent Villa team or someone paying big money for Joe. You know, is he going to play? Let's be honest, is it black or white? No, he's not. Do you know what I mean? Personally, he's not going to play. Nico Williams, again, I think Milner is, for me, is the 2nd choice right back.
The Minamino one, I mean, you understand why they took a bit of a flyer on him, because he came to Anfield and he was brilliant on the night, but he looks like a player who just wants to play in that number 10 position, and Liverpool don't operate with a number 10. Not many teams do actually at the top end of the pitch nowadays, so certainly they're the kind of best teams. So I think it's always been a little bit of a struggle for him physically, and I was someone who was always saying, well, you know, he's come to the club at a really, really tough time, which is true, and I think now and again there's flashes, but I think it's fair to say I don't really ever see it working out for Minamino, which is a little bit of a shame, because I think he's a talented footballer, but I think he has struggled with the physical side of the game. I don't particularly think, you know, sometimes people have said, well, could you use him as a number 9? Again,
you don't see that, do you?
No, you just don't see it, and that comes with a physical challenge, being number 9. I don't think you can do that, and when you put him in kind of one of the flank areas, again, you just don't see enough of him. The game passes him by a little bit too much for me. Yes, he's chipped in with a few important goals, more than you probably think, but I don't think him or Divock Origi will be rushing out the door. I think they'll both be happy to stick around. It's whether Liverpool are obviously maybe forced them a little bit, but again, they've not really done that under Jurgen Klopp. He's not been one to force people out the door. I think he'll let them stay if they want to stay, and then they reevaluate in the summer. I think it's fair to say both players, their future lies somewhere different than Liverpool, but whether it's January or whether it's a summer, we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, let's be crystal clear. If Jurgen Klopp agrees with Jamie Webster and tries to sell Joe Gomez, I will personally march on Anfield and stop him from doing it. But you know, it's a game of opinions. Thank you very much indeed to Jamie, to Ian, to Fuad, and to Pipe, and to Jack as well, John Gibbons, Andy Heaton for producing. It's been a packed Anfield Wrap. It'll be a packed day, transfer deadline day, and Liverpool are all in amongst the action.